All right, everyone, we should be live. Let's make sure that's actually the case. Over on Rumble, of course, I see chat is working. Cam2425IA, Morning Clank. Sixer, can't eat a book. Going to have to wait for a hypothetical Biltong ad. And Salty Badlands, the salt must flow. Ree. Yes, we've got a lot to talk about today. To all of you already assembled here, about 500 people already. I see that I am live on Rumble. I don't even have to refresh it anymore. Now, most of the time, it's a little bit iffy occasionally. Not exactly sure why. We've got to talk about Devin Archer's testimony. I covered that this morning. Now, I have a little bit of a different take from the left-right paradigm sort of analysis that you're getting on this, and I'll get into that in some detail because it is important. Also, Ron Perlman is back on X/Twitter after about 3 weeks boycotting the site and taking his business over to Threads. We're going to be LIL Donnie posting. Yes, exactly. And I have not bothered to archive the tweet here because I want full audience participation to go over to Ron Perlman's Twitter page and post the LIL Donnie stuff all over the place because in remembrance of the good times that we've had, it's a party. Also, 40 million ways Trump's campaign is morphing into a legal defense. Yes, people are salty that Donald Trump is well known enough to be able to raise legal funds to fend off a rogue federal government and several state governments at the same time. It's real sad. He's just using his donors as a piggy bank. I donated $100 to Trump's re-election bid. If he uses that on legal expenses, that's perfectly fine with me. I did that in full recognition of the fact that at the time he had already been indicted once. Now he's been indicted again. He's probably going to get indicted a third time. And it just comes with the territory. We'll be talking about that and much more. Also, Pritzker going completely goddamn insane over in Illinois. And that one is a big story. Q Fragger. Any news on the biolab discovered in LA? No news on that at the moment. I'll look into it more. Emperor Creatine. Perfect timing, Sticks. I was just wondering what to put on while changing out a spare tire. Had to get up early to do it since it's so hot in Texas. Yeah, it's probably about 100 degrees down in the Rio Grande Valley right now. Sparky, greetings, fearless leader. Greetings to you as well. Joe Hoffman. Good morning to all. Hope we all have a great day. So far, the day's looking up. I'm going to be making deviled eggs later. I make really good deviled eggs, like top of the line fucking deviled eggs. So I'm interested in eating my own food. Otherwise, I wouldn't cook it. Anyway, just a sec here. Yeah. Okay, we're going to start off with the Biden story because it's the big one with Devin Archer. He gave his testimony the other day. It's finally late enough in the United States so that all time zones actually have flipped over, other than maybe Hawaii. I'm not sure. It might still be the day of in Hawaii. I'm not. Don't quote me on that one. I'm not sure. But Devin Archer gave testimony the other day. Joe Biden was on at least 20 different calls with Hunter Biden between him and people at Burisma. And I warned this morning, we can get lost in the weeds on this one if we want closure on the Biden crime family saga. If you just fixate on the fact that Joe Biden talked to people at Burisma under the auspices of the testimony given, it means nothing because Devin Archer is claiming that the calls were not about anything business related. Well, that evinces what Joe Biden has said. There are two ways to interpret this, though, beyond, and I see the Republicans possibly flubbing this, and they really shouldn't because it's cut and dry. The first is that around that same time, Joe Biden openly declared to the public, he did this very publicly. Well, yeah, man, I told FAD over there in Ukraine, you need to investigate that Viktor Shokin person because it's becoming a problem, and so you need to let him go. Well, there's point number one. We know that Joe Biden did pressure the Ukrainian authorities to let Viktor Shokin go while he was attempting to investigate Burisma, the same company that Hunter Biden happened to be on the board with. That's number one. Number two, Joe Biden claims that he never met with any of these people in any fashion. He didn't say, well, I never talked about business with them. Originally, the claim was I never talked to them at all. Well, that's been exposed as a bald-faced lie. It's funny to see Democrats using Archer's testimony to cover for Biden when it means taking a step back from their original cope in order to do so. That's rather telling, actually. Third, we don't know that there weren't other conversations between Hunter Biden / Joe Biden, having him on the speakerphone, and Burisma executives. All we've got is we know that there were a number of conversations that Devin Archer can attest to having taken place. He never witnessed any quid pro quo. I would question everyone, since Archer and Hunter have had a falling out, apparently, which is why he gave testimony in the fucking first place. Wouldn't you suspect that Hunter Biden, unless he was cracked up at the time, quite literally, would hide the fact that there was a quid pro quo involving Daddy and the Burisma executives from his business partner? Why would he have him there when he's making the phone call? Supposedly, according to the testimony, what is the claim is that Joe Biden was brought in on the calls just to present the illusion that Hunter Biden had access to his dad. But it's his dad. He clearly had access to him. He talks to him all the time. Joe Biden brags about the fact, I talk to my kids and my grandkids on a regular basis, but I never speak about anything business related because that would be illegal. Well, Joe, you've already been found to have a number of illegally obtained classified documents at your home in Rehoboth. You have acted in an illegal manner on multiple occasions. It's just a matter of the Republicans don't apparently have the will to do anything about it. And that's what I suspect will happen. The Republicans are fully capable, as always, of snatching defeat from the jaws of victory, getting bogged down in Archer's testimony in and of itself, and the fact that Joe Biden talked to the Burisma officials, and therefore may not be able to make the case to the American people that the real significance is about Victor Shokin more than anything else. The prosecutor overseeing a potential case against Burisma was canned around the time that Joe Biden bragged about it, while he was also talking to officials in the company that was being investigated. That is a fairly cut and dry case. If this were in a U.S. court of law, a prosecutor could score a slam dunk. It wouldn't be hard because you've definitely got a motive. You don't have any reasonable alibi, and a jury would find the individual guilty outside of the arena of politics, of course. Will the Republicans be intelligent and strategic enough to actually go with that? That remains to be seen. We shall see. The Republicans are good at punting. They're good at messing up when no reasonable person would do so. Arbuthnot the Barbarian. Long-time Clanker, first-time commenting. Can you give a shout-out to my son and trainee, Clanker Harry? Thanks, mate. Clanker Harry gets a shout-out. There you are, right up on the screen. Gerald Armstrong, did you see the Twitter thread and the YouTube video Gonzalez Lira put out yesterday? Yes, I did, Coach Red Pill. He was bailed out of a Ukraine prison and made his way to the Hungarian border to escape. Yes, we're waiting on updates for that. I don't have any updates at this time about his personal status. Nars assist Riot, the sturdy hero. Happy belated birthday, Noah Hurt, 15 years old. Happy birthday. Mr. Repurposed, where am I and how did I get here? You're on a live stream currently. Before, how many people are watching live? Yeah, getting over towards 2,500 cross-platform, so enjoy. Your confusion displayed before over 2,000 people. Humiliating. Green Glassful, Bronze Age pervert and the faction of truth. The only real answer. Everything else is bullshit and gay. Doug Bernard, give me Clank or give me death. Free shirt idea. Not bad. Sparky, make Ukraine Russia again. Yeah, that was Coach Red Pill had the problem of basically professing that, and it's illegal in Ukraine. Wants to be in the EU. I don't know if even the EU countries want such draconian anti-speech laws myself, but we'll wait and see. Austin James, is Hunter the best Dem candidate 2028? It would be hilarious if Hunter Biden were to run. His crack addiction would be the mainstay of his campaign. I don't think that's going to happen. The Patriot Cairo. Trump waved around his massive cock, trolling the GOP, also rans, regarding the debate being a job interview for cabinet position. Man, I love Trump, lol. Yeah, I covered that this morning, too. Trump has decided not to attend the GOP debate in Milwaukee, and effectively on Truth Social insinuated that he was going to watch it, and it was basically a staging arena for them to put forth their ideas to potentially be a running mate or something like that. The dismissiveness is peak Trump, and it's probably strategically a good decision for him not to bother. He should do a competing event, and then he should watch the debate and act accordingly on his shit posts. Wow, the Republicans are too cowardly. They won't press. That's the danger. Certainly with McCarthy and Ronna McDaniels and shit leading them, certainly that's likely. Sparky, now free Assange. I agree completely. Julian Assange did nothing wrong. Crystal Blue is now a monthly supporter over on Rumble. Thank you very much, Crystal Blue. And the man behind the screen. Morning, Sticks and Clankers. Hard at work at my new store and new novelette, The Storm's Child. We'll be submitting it to Iron Age Media and my Substack, Takes of Calamity and Triumph. Clank on. Congratulations. Good luck with the new novella. That's what I'm talking about. Next news story. Yes, we've got to talk about Yo Little Donnie. Ron Perlman is, at this point, probably best known for saying that he peed on his hand before he shook hands with Harvey Weinstein. In fact, other than Hellboy, I'm not 100% sure what movies he's been in. Didn't he play a Neanderthal in a movie back in like the 80s or some shit like that? Because he's got what is it, a megalocephaly or something like that. He's got an abnormally shaped head and or is it acromegaly, I think it's called. I'm not 100% sure, so key me in if you want to. Anyway, movies aside, Ron Perlman these days is best known for the Yo Little Donnie meme. The Yo Little Donnie meme, in a nutshell, for the handful of people out there who might not know, is the idea that Ron Perlman goes way beyond pissing on his hand in order to own other people. He's obsessed with piss and shit and vomit and all of that stuff. And he blocked me on Twitter long ago for pointing this out and memeing his posts. Yo, Little Donnie, I stuck a pencil in my ass. How do you feel about them apples, Little Donnie, and stuff like that. And he, several weeks ago, this was on July the 10th, he said that he was going to take his business to Threads. So basically, fuck Twitter, it's dead. He was joining that party. He lasted 3 weeks exactly. As of yesterday, he's now back active on Twitter. The original tweet, breaking, I'm taking my business to Threads. Haters, stay the fuck out. The new one, woke up to see Twitter is now X. The real question is why? Well, because people like you will pile back on the platform. You're the only reason this is newsworthy, other than the Yo Little Donnie meme, which I personally find funny, is it's an example of the Twitter derangement syndrome crowd. They keep leaving Twitter for very short periods of time to go to Threads, which is effectively dead in the water at this point. Nobody uses it, I think. Mastodon, which is also, again, half dead. Tribble, which literally nobody uses, which is hilarious because the Occupy Dems are the ones that developed it. And I still have a feeling that their entire goal is to eventually sell it, to flip the network so that user data can be bought up by another company or something, and to hopefully run a profit. I think that's what they're going with. And some others, their name escapes me out of the top of my head. But people keep using these other platforms. And they'll very proudly post on Twitter, by the way, that they're leaving Twitter. But then they always come back, or at least 99% of them do. Ron Perlman has now joined that club. Why? Because Twitter is still the place to be as far as social media goes. Threads barely exists. Facebook is an aging joke. Instagram is just a bunch of people posting pictures of themselves in swimsuits and shit like that and posting pictures of what they're eating. And there are no other competitors. The main competitor of Twitter is Gab, actually. At this point, give it a couple of weeks and Gab will probably have higher engagement than Threads does, which I find absolutely hilarious, awe-strikingly hilarious. All of Zuckerberg's money and even jury-rigging half of Instagram and trying to layer up them into using his new social network, and he still managed to fail. Dude, Instagram is actually a big thing. It's the one big thing that Zuckerberg still has. Even then, you fucking failed. The engagement on Threads is a joke. God damn, there are people, singular vloggers that hook up a webcam that probably have more engagement than all of Threads at this point. And there's nowhere to go but down, because once a site shows that kind of collapse, the writing is on the wall. So Perlman sobered up and realized, hey, if it isn't for my Twitter shitpost, nobody knows who the fuck I goddamn am anyway. And so he decided to return to Twitter, which I think is funny because he said he was moving his business to Threads. Well, why aren't you loud and proud over there? Oh, is it because Zuckerberg abandoned his own platform a week in? Is it because he doesn't even post on his own platform anymore? He's too busy having the Facebook people post on Twitter? I think we know why. The last Sathoi. As I ride my Rowan called Oak, I'm looking for Anton's Billy Tongue. I sadly got kicked by Texas ass. Pokeslasher. Perlman was the narrator in the Fallout games. He was? This is news to me. Sparky. Perlman's day was the mid-70s. I think he was in Annie Hall. Yeah, I think he was a caveman in one movie, and he's Hellboy. I think that's the biggest thing. I didn't know he was the narrator in Fallout. Is that true? Are you fucking pulling my leg? I mean, I can believe it. He does have an iconic voice. It's just that everything else about him is fucking derpy. And, you know, he claimed that he was going to leave the platform. He came back awfully quickly. I wonder why that could possibly be the case. He really was. Jesus. We're fact-checking this shit. Also, my chat is all messed up here. There's something wrong with it. Fallout 76. Okay, he was actually the narrator for that. And for Fallout 4, just for Fallout 76. He blocked me. Sinister Minister sent $5. No comment. Thank you very much. Yeah, apparently it's true. Jesus. Well, I guess that's the second most iconic thing he's done after being Hellboy. I've never seen it, but people apparently like the movie. He's sort of a has-been, I think, more than anything else. Huh. Perlman's big time was Sons of Anarchy. I never saw that either. Ron Perlman was in the TV series Beauty and the Beast back in the 1980s. Jesus Christ. Anyway, as far as Ron Perlman goes, basically he's just a fucking hypocrite. Next news story, 40 million ways Trump's campaign is morphing into his legal defense. I have seen so much coat posting. I mean, enough to give me a fucking headache. From liberals and from DeSantis fans, which, you know, some of them haven't gotten the memo that the jig is up. DeSantis is done, basically. He no longer really poses a challenge to Donald Trump, which is why Trump has said, look, I'm 34, 35 points ahead. I'm not going to bother attending your derpy debate. I'm not going to sign the campaign pledge. I'm the nominee. You all can fight one another. It will probably devolve into Chris Christie attacking Trump and then Mike Pence shamefacedly having to defend Trump's record, by the way. So unless Trump has a really big competing rally, if I do like a live reaction that day, it's basically going to be a laughing at Mike Pence reaction because I have a feeling at that first debate, Mike Pence is really going to be the loser. I'd be surprised if he even has a pulse politically after the debate. He's shown that he's not really strategically careful when it comes to his responses to people's inquiries. Anyway, with regards to this, Donald Trump, here's the thing. If I'm Donald Trump, I have $100 million plus a year in income on paper, although other people are managing the businesses, and that's really part of this. That all comes from rent and things like that because I own a bunch of buildings. I'm a real estate developer. When people say that Donald Trump should just sell one of his skyscrapers and then everything would be fine, he wouldn't need the legal defense fund. That's not the way that wealth works, and it's certainly not the way that an 80s mogul thinks. Every property that he has brings him in continued income. The income just gets rolled over and continuously reinvested in other properties, in stocks and shit like that. That's how true wealth works. Rich is, I've got a stack of Benji Greens. I got $10 million sitting there. Wealth is, I took that $10 million and invested in things that will bring me more money. And that's where Donald Trump is coming from. So suggesting that there's something wrong with somebody who's worth a couple billion on paper simply because he owns real estate, which he also owes taxes on, by the way, just to be clear. Fundraising for a legal defense is ludicrous. People either donate or they don't donate. They know exactly where that money is going to. If they donate to a general PAC or something like that, maybe not. But if they're donating to the Trump Legal Defense Fund, what the fuck do you think the money is going to go for? Is it A, Trump's legal defense, or B, something else? I fail to see the problem here. I'm seeing an awful lot of Trump derangement syndrome about this, though. Well, winners don't have to do this. Well, no. Smart people put on a grand defense. Smart people do raise tens of millions if they have the capability of doing so to try to fend off several states and the federal government at the same time, collectively with trillions of dollars in legal assets. The government is capable of robbing the taxpayers. There's a problem, by the way, downriver for even the little guy. The government is capable of unleashing untoward resources to prosecute you. You are not. In some cases, we've seen GoFundMe and sites like that close down fundraising pages just to try to screw in the knife a little bit more. They did that to Rittenhouse, for example. We've seen it should be illegal, but they do that. You have limited resources and are one person with a limited amount of time. Most of you have 9-to-5 jobs or something like that, or you're in college, you go to courses. If the government comes and they decide, hey, we think you're guilty of a crime, they detain you. You have to post bail, so you're paying money for that. You hire a lawyer. You have to pay them. Who's paying their lawyers? You are. The taxpayers are paying for their lawyers. This is why most cases, unless they are egregious or really, really minor and nobody really cares, end in a plea deal. The average person is not capable of waging a months-long protracted battle against the U.S. government or against a state government entity. There isn't enough money for them. If the government were to come down on me, and someday it might, I'm a political dissident, so, don't write it off as a possibility. I can fundraise a legal defense to an extent. Would I be smart to do so? Absolutely. Most people aren't in that boat. Most people can't say, hey, the government has just charged me with assault. I was nowhere near the assault, but they're telling me that they know that I'm guilty, and now I've got to pay this fucking lawyer $500 a fucking hour, which wouldn't be out of the ballpark for a decent lawyer, by the way. And I just can't swing it because even if I'm making a decent amount of money, I will go broke defending myself. So it's between fundraise or plea deal. Well, I wouldn't want to take a plea deal. If I think that I can defend my case in the end, of course, maybe there's restitution from the state. Probably not. Most people don't have that ability. I don't begrudge Donald Trump the ability to crowdsource funding for his legal defense. He is being abused by the legal system of several states and the federal government. Of course he's going to do this. He doesn't want to have to liquidate a skyscraper. That's monthly income he's no longer getting. He shouldn't be compelled to do so. He's done nothing wrong. So, yeah. Yeah, Jez for press. You can get a government-paid lawyer who has like a half a year experience and is incompetent. Yeah, you can use a public defender if you're crazy. For a minor case, that's probably not a big problem. If you're in on felony charges or a number of serious misdemeanors, aggravated assault or something, you are absolutely nuts if you don't pull out all the stops to defend yourself unless you intend to simply argue for a plea deal. 9 times out of 10, the latter will be the case. You will go to jail. You probably won't go to prison in the end, but you'll probably have a lesser included, and they'll nail you on that. Hey, we think you're guilty of aggravated assault on 5 individuals, but there's a lesser included of misdemeanor battery or something like that. You plead guilty to that, plead no contest, you accept your punishment. We'll go before the judge and say, look, it was his first time offending. He seems sorry. We're arguing for probation. We're arguing for a fine. We're arguing for 100 hours community service. But in the end, you still get punished for something you may not have done. The fact is you may have done it, but at the same time, the legal system does not give a fuck. Rich people generally aren't treated that way. The fact that they're treating a multi-billionaire in the way that they would treat the dregs of society, as they would term them, is why I'm going to be voting for Trump. Let's see. The Patriot Cairo. Just a sec here. Patriot Cairo. Perlman is drooling loser D actor hack and boosted. OMG puppies. Instagram's algorithm. No matter what I like or don't show me more, it keeps pumping kittens and cooking satire videos at me. Casseroles made with corn chips, hot dogs, and Cheese Whiz. Look up Simply Sarah on YouTube if you want to see some really crazy shit cooking-wise. 500-pound unrepentant woman who now has bizarre fake nails, apparently, according to Liz, making the most off-the-wall unhealthy foods you can possibly get. She had one video in which her diabetes medications were actually proudly displayed in the background. I have a feeling that that was on purpose. Don't even get me started on the chain on her office chair. Stain on her office chair. Sinister Minister, have you seen the success Bukele is having against the cartels in El Salvador? Yes, but it does come at a hefty price. Keep in mind, some of those people may be innocent. So it's a double-edged sword. I don't agree with the left or the right on that particular issue. There's not a whole lot of great solutions when you have crime. David Hunter, is it just me, or does it seem like a lot of the non-political YouTube creators have stopped or greatly reduced their output? YouTube seems desolate lately. Yes, YouTube is having problems. They're getting outcompeted by TikTok and Rumble at the same time mainly. Wow, how do I increase my word count and writing speed? Ideally, I'd like to achieve 2 to 3K words in a 2 to 3 hour writing session. What help you give is appreciated. I don't have any real help to give. I just constantly write. I don't know, post on Twitter more and, limber those fingers up a bit. God, if I ever get carpal tunnel, I'm up shit creek without a paddle, I suppose. Gerald Armstrong, did you see in the interview DeSantis gave on Fox saying that Trump held him back in 2018? No, but if somebody can DM me that would definitely be news fodder. Rogue Runner, thank you from Gen Z. Clank from the Bay Area. Oh, you mean hell. Thank you for the clank you. Erroneous Designs, Trump 2024. Absolutely. He's already got my vote. He doesn't need to do anything else to earn it. Now he needs to go after the independents. Next news story. Opinion, the changing Republican electorate could upend the basic rule of politics. This particular article, it's actually an alarmist article, an opinion piece from CNN by Mike Shields. And it posits the possibility of a massive Republican victory in the 2024 election. It's based on looking at data from the last few elections. So in the midterms, the GOP, it's flipped. Before, the GOP outperformed in midterms and underperformed in presidential election years. And the argument is that's flipped now, and so 24 is basically Trump's to lose and the Republicans to lose. I would counter with this. Be very, very cautious on several tokens here. Number one, the Democrats' ground game is better than the Republicans' ground game. Number two, the GOP holds incumbency within the House, as in they have a majority there. Normally, that predicates a fall from favor. And it could be only by a couple of seats, in which case they narrowly retain it. But it would be usual, it would be normal for them to lose control of the House. In fact, at this point, if nothing else changes, I predict that this would be my preliminary prediction. Trump has a better than 60% chance of winning re-election. I think that's likely. Joe Biden is not presiding over a great economy or diplomatic situation. The Republicans regain the Senate, probably by a seat or two, but they lose the House. That would be my first impression. It would be basically situation normal for a dual incumbent election. That would be my expectation. I do not believe at this time that this article is effectively by a Democrat raising panic among liberals, actually. Oh my God, Republicans might kick ass. They're flipping the tables on the normal political situation. We have seen a flipping of the demographic maps, certainly with Black and especially Hispanic voters. We've seen a number of states jilting off into one direction or another. For instance, Washington State, Oregon, they used to be swing states. They're now fairly solid blue. Florida was a swing state. In fact, it was the 50-50 state. Now it's fairly solidly red. Virginia could go either way. We're still waiting on more polling in many of these states. That being said, I don't necessarily believe that it trickles down into the Republicans taking a House and Senate supermajority and Trump is reelected and everything's peachy keen. It's premature to suspect that would be the case. It would be nice. As a non-Republican, I would prefer the Republicans kick ass, at least insofar as the MAGA Republicans go, in the general election, but it's premature to say so. And you've got to understand, when we're talking about Republicans, we're talking about two different animals, effectively. We're talking about unipartyists who can pull out all the stops to defend their own candidates, and the MAGA crowd, which would actually do something meaningful, which was abused by its own party in 2022 and in 2020. The Republican Uniparty, of which Mitch McConnell is probably not long for this world the de facto leader, along with Kevin McCarthy, has screwed its own candidates up and down over and over. You look, for instance, at Chewbacca in Alaska. You have a GOP v. GOP race, and what does Mitch McConnell command to be done with the $10 million of discretionary spending for Senate races? sends it to Alaska to buff up Murkowski when a Republican will automatically be elected in that race. There is no other candidate. In the runoff, it was Republican v. Republican. They spent $10 million. They could have buffed up a half a dozen House members with that money, or at least a couple of the senators. Masters would have won. Walker would have won. You would have held the Senate. It's self-explanatory, but the thing is the Uniparty didn't want those people to win. It would rather work with liberals than with MAGA Republicans in the end. King of Biltong, good morning from Anton's in Roanoke, Texas. Free shipping with code STICKS for your Biltong on antonsusa.com and landofbiltong.com. Hashtag Clank Nation. Thank you, my man. It's all going into savings. I'm going to stuff that money in a piggy bank. I'm going to show up with like $1,000 and just buy every bit of Biltong that's in your store. Good luck resupplying it. It'll take you a while. Sell the hamster. Everyone needs to remember about local elections and most importantly, volunteer for vote counting if you can. Don't forget, watch New York Citizens Audit Exposed. Yes, knock on doors. Talk to other people. Don't let it be online only. If you spend one afternoon harvesting some ballots and getting people signed up for voting, if everyone that opposed Biden or like Trump, which is many millions of people, did that for a week, that's all. You took your vacation and you took a couple of hours a day to do just that. You would have won the election already. All that needs to exist is the will to do so. Erroneous Design. Speaking of 2024, what is your take on 2,000 Mules? I have still not watched that, actually, although I need to get around to it. It's just when you've got a kid and technically 3 different jobs and you're doing a dozen other things at the same time, time is scarce. I barely have time to cook, and I enjoy cooking. Made a vegetable soup last night. It was so good I ate 3 bowls of it. Sparky, Ukrainian SBU likely arrested Gonzalo Lira the second time at the behest of DC, as Lira was abiding by the deal he made with the SBU the first time. DC contributes to Ukrainian kill list too, by the way. It's possible, actually. Bara, rip Pee Wee Herman. Yes, Paul Rubens died of cancer the other day. He was 70. I was banned by my mother from watching Pee Wee's Big Adventure, actually, for a number of years, because after the first time I saw it, I wouldn't stop making my Pee Wee Herman impression, which I will not do right now. I do a better Bernie Sanders than I do a Pee Wee Herman. I would troll everyone around me with that, and I thought it was hilarious because, I mean, it's this off-the-wall, zany-ass character. I'm a hellion. I'm a problem child. I find insanity funny, and Pee Wee definitely acted insane in that movie. And Large Marge, of course, definitely stole the show. It was pretty good. I like Pee Wee's Big Adventure. I remember one of my exes, she hadn't seen it and thought the idea sounded stupid when I described the movie in brief. Then she watched it while high, of course. She was on marijuana. Loved it. One of her favorite movies. That was pretty funny. So yeah, don't anticipate a red wave in the 24 election. Tentatively, I would say the GOP takes the Senate narrowly and that Trump has an advantage. But we will wait and see because we do not know what the economic news will be over the subsequent year. If it gets better, Biden recovers some. If there's a major diplomatic failure, inflation rears again or something like that, it harms Biden. It also harms the Democrats in general. Dennis the Menace, thoughts on the pillar of fire and smoke that appeared to the Israelites in the desert in the book of Exodus? Completely made up or kernel of truth? Completely made up. Never happened. The entire story of Exodus is bullshit, actually. It's effectively a retroactive way of trying to explain to the Israeli nation later on how they got there and by what methodology and you know, God's with us and stuff like that. The Israelis, the Jews, were in Egypt. They were not in captivity. They sold themselves into voluntary servitude to get food because the Egyptians had a silo storage system and they were migratory at the time. They realized they would all die and starve if they didn't go there. And so they said, okay, we'll labor on the fucking pyramids, basically, if you give us our grain. And that's what happened. The same thing happened, by the way, in the Babylonian captivity, although that was a little bit less voluntary. Next news story. Italy minister says decision to join flagship Chinese scheme is wicked. Italy's defense minister, so he's got a different opinion than some Italian politicians on this, called his country's decision to join a flagship Chinese infrastructure scheme wicked as the government weighs up whether to continue as part of the scheme. Pro tip to the Italian people. Do not continue on this. It is a grift. In an interview with the Corriere della Sera newspaper published Sunday, Guido Crosetto said that the Belt and Road Initiative, this is China's big plan to link up a bunch of economies through infrastructure mainly, which Italy signed up to under its previous government, had done little to help the country's exports. Now, first we'll say that it's only a few years since you joined it, so it's premature to judge the economic output. Giving China influence over your nation historically is a very, very bad idea. We can see this in parts of Asia. We can certainly see this in East Africa. Now, Italy is more resolute than Kenya or a country like that. Have you ever looked at some of the political parties after the initiative and similar initiatives were enacted by China, especially in East Africa? Have you looked at some of the political parties that reared up and started to exist? Some of them, their only platform was kick China out of the country because Chinese business people will come in and they will rape the local population. And I'm not exaggerating. There's a high degree of abuse of workers in those Chinese factories. The infrastructure is put in, but it's only for the Chinese business people and the bigwigs in the country. The average person still can't afford a car, so they're not driving on the roads. They're not riding on the trains. They're still riding a goddamn mule to work. And then they work, 60 hours a week, and they get a little bit more than they would get on average in their own home country. So they feel like they're not being mistreated, but they are still being mistreated. The Chinese are misusing them for raw resources, especially of an industrial nature. In Italy, they're not getting raw industrial resources. It's mostly trade related, if I remember correctly. So Italy has joined the Belt and Road. Now it's possible that they leave it in 2024. I would encourage them to do so. China is not the future. China represents effectively a steroid version of the past more than anything else. Sparky, Exodus is a decent tune by Bob Marley. Never heard it. Not a huge Bob Marley fan, although the few songs I have heard were pretty good. Definitely listened to them more when I was stoned at UVM than I do now. Let's see. Fiona is my bitch says, greetings and salutations. Long time, first time. We are in Washington State behind enemy lines, waiting on the housing crash to move. You are adored by our home. Rip Fiona Glenellen. Did Lyra make it to Hungary? I will probably have updates later. It's down to the wire as to whether he's allowed into the country, though. Of course, he could just illegally cross the border and claim to be a refugee. Just claim that you lose your fucking passport and claim to be Syrian, dude. They'll have to let you in. Otherwise, they're violating human rights. Conger, got volume 1 and 2 of Orange Man Bad in the mail yesterday. Read the first story and I cracked up. I appreciate your disclaimer that the personalities in your stories aren't connected to living persons. Yeah, the disclaimer is almost comedic as well because, well, they're totally not based on real-world people. By the way, links in the description, and I'll pop them into chat as I've done over the last few days, to my books on Blogspot and on WordPress. Yes, you can get some books for me. Orange Man Big is only one of them. I've got over 400 different editions that are offered. Now, for some reason, it's not posting on StreamYard. Oh, now it posted. Okay, there we go. Finally. Sparky, it's a good thing that the West doesn't mistreat African countries. Oh, of course it does. But less than the Chinese do. You'll notice that there aren't too many political parties whose single platform is kick the Americans out of our country with their investment. There are numerous parties that are in East Africa that exist to that purpose for China, though. Sparky, you got to understand. I'm not gung-ho for everything NATO or the U.S. does, and I currently don't like the U.S. leadership, of course. But the West is best compared to the East Bloc. People who have existed under East Bloc systems generally seem to agree with this. There is a difference. The thing is, we're capable of solving our problems. We're capable of eliminating wokeness. Are the Chinese people capable of overthrowing their government in order to get rid of the authoritarianism there? It might be a little bit difficult for them to do so. But yeah, you can get books from me, again, at those links. And you should, because there's an awful lot of occultism there. You like history, you like anthropology, the Freemasons, anything like that? We've got something for you. Just browse the different categories on either of those blogs. By the way, getting up towards 5,000 people watching live. I thank you all very much for tuning in. Got a couple more stories to cover. X removed after being installed atop company's headquarters following Twitter's rebrand. This is now, I think, the third or fourth time that San Francisco authorities have decided to abuse Elon Musk's people over there in their city. And it's fucktarded, basically. First, they complained about them removing the Twitter sign from their property. Now they're complaining about them putting up their new logo on their property. Well, it's not properly built. It's not up to, you don't have a permit. It's not up to building codes. Basically, you're not allowed to even brand your own company. They had the police show up a few days ago. I talked about it. They had the police show up at Twitter headquarters. Okay, the richest man in the world owns this building. All right. I know that the law is not supposed to be a respecter of persons, but you know you're really pushing the envelope at some point. They show up there to complain that they didn't have a permit to remove one sign, even though they had it cordoned off. They've got the people already removing the Twitter sign anyway. And under any other circumstances, they wouldn't even be involved. Now they're telling them that they can't have their X logo on top of their own building because of permitting process. Well, have you looked at how long? Anyone can answer me this, by the way, in chat. How long do you think in a city like San Francisco, far blue, run by the left, very highly regulatory, how long do you think it would take to get a building permit to put up a 30, 40 foot tall, basically glowing billboard on top of an office building? How long? How long do you think it would take for them to tell you that, yes, indeed, you can remove the old sign on the corner of your building because we don't have a problem with it because you paid all the fees, the junk fees, as Biden would call them under any other circumstances, to remove something from literally your own fucking building? How long do you think it would take? Days, weeks, months, perhaps years if the city of San Francisco doesn't like your politics? You don't have to be a super fan of Elon Musk to realize that they're gunning for him. Nonetheless, Elon Musk has decided to stay in San Francisco. I don't think that's the wisest idea. If I've got one criticism for Elon Musk, it's him stubbornly deciding to stay in the Bay Area that's going to end up in the ocean in the next 100 years anyway, instead of simply moving to Texas. Yes, people are pointing out, the correct answer is it may literally take years to get such a fucking permit. Even in the deregulated Netherlands, it takes them months. And there are construction cranes on every street corner in this country. How long do you, in Texas, Rio Grande? Oh, you want to put together a building? Here, sign here. Pay $10. Okay, go ahead. Build your home. Build your shitty home that's made out of 3 trailers bolted to one on top of the other. Even in Vermont, it doesn't take that much effort. And they've beefed up those regulations, as we see, of course, with the Slate Ridge training camp and the environmental court involved with that. In San Francisco, holy goddamn fuck shit. You're looking at least a few months. Well, he wants his logo up there now. It's not bothering anyone. I'm pretty sure, given his particular engineering finesse and the people that he's hiring, I'm fairly sure that Elon Musk knows how to affix an object to the top of a building without a stiff breeze blowing it into the street below and crushing someone. I'm just going to say, I trust him to do such a thing. You do realize that he's putting rockets into orbit and then bringing them back to Earth in serviceable condition, landing them on pads that are about 100 yards wide, right? Do you think that he can probably put a logo on top of an office building? I think that he's probably got that down pat. But in San Francisco, it doesn't matter. They're no respecter of persons or a finesse. They just want a bunch of money and probably to just abuse Elon Musk. Again, I have my criticisms of Elon Musk. Him putting up a big glowing X on his own building is definitely not one of them. Sparky, it's difficult not to like Bob Marley's song 3 Little Birds. D. Schneid, here's something. My dad tells me he sold his house in South Cal to a Chinese couple who must have had 30 kids. They kept talking about how many bunk beds they could set up in each room. I have a feeling it's probably not 30, but I don't know. Maybe they keep having triplets every time. Sparky, there's been a paradigm shift in both the East and the West, albeit in opposite directions. I actually covered that in my work, Nazis, Commies, and Terrorists. The West is becoming more like the East used to be and should go in the other direction and avoid continuing that. That being said, it's still salvageable, but the East wasn't salvageable to begin with. The old world mentality died a long time ago, and it needs to be, we need to stick it a few more times, make it bleed out a little more quickly. I do not say that in a warmongering sense, by the way. Diplomacy and showing people the right way by simply succeeding generally works better. There's an old proverb: you get more flies with a spoonful of sugar than with a gallon of vinegar. Although flies do like vinegar as well. Hell, the fruit flies drown themselves in it. So maybe that particular proverb, well, meaningful, doesn't hold as much weight. Anyways, the last news story of the day. This is a real humdinger. Pritzker defends Illinois bill that allows non-citizens to become police officers. If you are in the state of Illinois, if you happen to get detained or questioned or arrested, it may be someone who is a resident rather than a legal citizen of the United States doing so. Well, we've opened up those jobs. There's a caveat to this. I'll explain up front. This is not for illegals. This is not for asylum seekers. So that's off the table. What this bill does is it allows people who are lawfully in the United States to become police officers, whether or not they're citizens. So now you've got a constitutional crisis, and a court really needs to injunct this, in which a law-abiding U.S. citizen, fully citizen of the United States, they've taken the loyalty pledge, et cetera, they can vote and so forth, can be imprisoned potentially by somebody who is a lawful resident but has not taken that pledge and is not a full-on citizen of the United States. Pritzker is insane. The state of Illinois would be insane not to protest this move. The courts would be insane not to injunct it. And if exported from Illinois elsewhere, I'm sure California is chomping at the bit to get something similar, although oddly enough, it might fail there as opposed to Illinois. They'd be insane too. The idea that a law-abiding U.S. citizen should be in any way interacting with someone who is taxpayer funded, by the way, who is not a legal full citizen of the United States in a legal capacity is so far beyond the pale that if you told me 5 years ago that a state would even consider it, I would say, okay, yeah, I know California is wonky, but it'll never pass. But it passed in Illinois, and that's rather concerning to me. This should not be a thing any more than non-citizens voting in municipal elections. Got struck down, I think, in Vermont, actually, not long ago, if I remember correctly. Or was it Vermont or one of the other New England states? I think it was Vermont. I think it got injuncted. But Pritzker, I mean, you must be out of your fucking mind. By the way, strategically speaking, how do you expect a lot of the people within your state to react to this? It seems that there's a considerable amount of outrage. I'm going to go on a deep dive later through the news and try to figure out just how deep the outrage goes. I have a feeling that even a lot of citizens of your state that are liberal in nature would not want to be arrested by somebody who is not even a legal citizen of the United States. Again, they have pledged no loyalty. They're allowed to remain in the U.S., but they can't vote. In some cases, they can't own a firearm, and it's not entirely clear under those circumstances how they'd be a cop. I guess they push papers around on the desk. You know, there are cops that don't work on the beat. Okay, a dispatcher. Well, that might be a little bit less than an arresting officer. But if a person in Illinois there's also a legal concern. Let's say that you're in the state of Illinois and you commit a crime. So you just mugged somebody. You just robbed a house or a liquor store or something. You get caught. But then later on, your defense finds out that the arresting officer was not even a citizen of the United States when they arrested you. Could this form a legal challenge? Yeah. It could go all the way to the Supreme Court. In fact, it may take just that to strike the law down. You've got to be goddamn crazy, though, to even suggest this seriously, let alone to have a governor actually sign off on something that deprives his own citizens, his own state citizens, of the right to make sure that the person that's arresting them is even a full-on citizen of the United States. How can you legally justify, pragmatically justify, or constitutionally justify the concept that a U.S. citizen in their own country and state would be deprived, even if temporarily under, being detained, of liberty by someone who's not even a citizen? How can you possibly maintain that categorical argument? It makes no sense whatsoever. By the way, please send no more super chats because I will have to go offline soon. Again, I'm making deviled eggs and a loaded salad later, so it's going to be a good night. Fantech0104. The media is making hype about a new pandemic. Of course, from meat. I've seen that. Do you think more people would push back, and would it make Trump look more strong? I would go eat a steak. I wouldn't have any further opinion. Branch Covidian 19. I'm with you on the new Illinois law, but you also have to realize nobody in their right mind wants to be a cop in Chicago. Yeah, I guess they ran out of citizens to be cops, so now they have to draft residents. Well, I mean, if you're allowed to do that for residents, why wouldn't you also be allowed to extend that to asylum seekers legally entitled to be in the country? What about illegals that are covered under the DREAM Act? Why couldn't you, in theory, draft them to be cops, displacing the local population entirely? The man behind the screen. I had to scroll back to check, but it looks like autocorrect goofed the name of my Substack, swapped Tales to Takes. So the Storm's Child will be up on my Tales of Calamity and Triumph in a few days. Nice. Sparky, last time I was in the Belgian Congo, it seemed like the natives would have longed for Chinese rule if they had a chance to think about it. Yeah, but they would also long for US rule or French rule or something like that, just not Belgian rule. I wonder why. Imagine you're Belgium. You've got literally 2 colonial possessions, a little chunk of the Indonesia, which I think was overrun by the Dutch, actually. And then you've got the Congo. You've got rubber, you've got lumber, you've got enormous numbers of potential resources for industry. What do? You go in there and you start chopping people's hands off to reduce the amount of labor that they're capable of doing. Leopold was a little bit off, and he was considered to be insane even by other colonial leaders. So I think French rule probably would have been the best for most people. They were the most hedonistic and they'd go in and make love to the natives. The British just wanted money, so if they came in, you could sort of tolerate it. Belgians, though, yeah, you didn't want the Belgians to move in next door. Hell, the Dutch here still don't want the Belgians next door half the time. Look at the difference in the roads. Here it's immaculate. It's like the best road system you could possibly hope for. The second you cross over into Belgium, and I've seen pictures and video of this, it's like it looks like Vermont roads, basically. Anyways, I'm going to go offline. I thank you to the nearly 5,000 people who decided to show up for this live stream. I will be live again tomorrow. On Friday, I may or may not be live, however, because I do have my driver's test that day. Yes, I know that I can drive like a pro, but you also have to do the fucking driver's test to get a license in a foreign country, so I have to go through the motions. I'm pretty sure that I'll pass it. Then I got to go buy a car. I'm thinking of a Jeep because Jeeps are cool, but I've got to find one that's rather short because the parking spaces here are tiny. And ain't no way that I'm going to be able to get like a full-sized 4-door Jeep into one of those parking spots without hitting somebody because it's probably physically impossible. If not, I'm going to get a compact car, unfortunately. Something, I don't know, I'll get a Volkswagen Beetle maybe. Heil the Volk. That's about all. Peace out.